Some years ago, I don't remember the exact year, but I do remember the place and the people. It was at the Metropolitan Pavilion, and I invited Ruth Berman and Connie Kurtz to offer a membership talk. I started that year, and maybe Ruthie, you're watching tonight, you could tell us what year that was. I had this idea back then that at each Rosh Hashanah we could ask a different member of the community to offer some words to describe who they are and what CBST means to them, as a way to encourage people to become members if they're not, and if they are members, to increase their donations to the synagogue. Because you know what? Ein kemach, ein Torah. We need all of you. In the many, many years since then, each year we've invited somebody else who represents some other part of our community to stand in front of the community on Rosh Hashanah and tell us about them. We've had so many people from all different parts of our community, from all different sexual orientations and gender identities, from young and from old and all different types. We've had families with children, all different types. The list is fantastic, actually. Be a great montage, all of these videos of all of these membership talks. But tonight we've invited somebody who joined CBST during COVID. They lived in Austin, Texas, and found us from there. And now they've just moved to New York City. But because we felt this is such an appropriate moment to acknowledge that some people joined CBST and have not yet even been in the building because they've joined during this time, we thought this is the kind of a person we'd love to celebrate. Ari Monts, who's going to speak to us in a minute, is an independent scholar, artist, and queer liturgist. Ari grew up in Connecticut, got a BA in music, theater, and women's and gender study from the University of North Carolina in Greensboro, and has just finished coursework toward a PhD at the University of Texas at Austin. Their research looks at the role of participatory performance rituals and their roles in community formation. So I want to stop right there so all of you can get to know Ari as I have. They've been in our Psalms class, and it's been really fabulous having Ari a part of the CBST community this year. Ari, please speak to us.
Shana Tova. Happy New Year, CBST. I am so honored to be speaking to you all today. I did not grow up Jewish. Outside of the handful of B'nai Mitzvah I attended in middle school, I hadn't seriously thought about living a Jewish life until college, when I took an Introduction to Judaism course to fulfill a general education requirement. That was the first time something shifted. It was a small shift, but in hindsight, it changed the trajectory of my life. But the real moment I knew my soul was Jewish and that becoming a Jew was beshert, destined, was on the first night of Pesach in 2013. I was on a date-turned-Seder. We did all the things you do on an 8-hour lesbian first date. We got chicken and waffles, we walked the city, we went to a museum, we even went grocery shopping. It was as we browsed the shelves of the local Food Lion, looking for chips, that she quipped, "Oh, tonight's the first night of Passover. Want to have a Seder with me?" I had a basic idea of what a Seder was, but more importantly, I wasn't ready for the date to end. So, of course, I said yes. We got paper plates, a lamb chop, mustard with horseradish, eggs, a head of lettuce, applesauce, and wine. When you're 22, you make do. That night, she led me through the Seder, telling me that because this was my first one, I got to be the youngest child and ask the 4 questions. We took selfies after every glass of wine, a tradition I keep to this day, chased down her cat who stole the bone from our lamb chop, and we talked about dreams of liberation until 3 o'clock in the morning. It was perfect, and I've been chasing that feeling since that date. There is a rich tradition of vibrant Judaism in the South, where I went to college and beyond in Greensboro, North Carolina, and in Austin, Texas, where I lived up until 2 weeks ago. And still, institutional Jewish life never felt accessible to me. I was too Black, I was too political, I didn't know the songs the community sang, I didn't know Hebrew, I wasn't Jewish enough. There felt like too many obstacles. How, with all the catching up I had to do, could institutional Jewish life compare to that perfect Seder I had on that date. Could anything ever feel as good as that moment for me? My fears made me relegate Judaism to a purely home-based and academic practice. I read works of Jewish thinkers and I lit Shabbat candles. But it was personal, not communal. Years passed with me holding on to Judaism in these small ways, and it was fine, but I craved more. The craving got to a point where I reached out to a local synagogue about joining, but on my graduate student's budget, the dues became a hindrance. And once again, I settled with what I was used to. And then on March 15th, 2020, everything changed. I remember settling in for what I assumed would be a month or two of quarantining, grateful for the home-based rituals I'd cultivated for myself. But there was also a deep loneliness. There wasn't any more studying at the library until 1 a.m. with friends, coffee dates all but disappeared, all rituals of gathering and being together that had made me feel whole were gone, seemingly overnight. And while those feelings were real and valid, there was also another truth that I hadn't yet realized, related to the ways in which the pandemic required us to change our definition of liveness. The smells, sounds, and sights we'd so long associated with gathering in real time had to change. Being in person wasn't the only way to cultivate community. I thought hard about what I wanted in an online Jewish community. Spirituality taken seriously, intergenerational engagement, learning that was separated from competition and grades. I bounced around, watching this Shul's lecture series, another's pre-recorded Kabbalat Shabbat service, downloading a Jewish Center's holiday guide. They were balms to my weary and nervous spirit, and I wanted more. Then, as is my wont, I found a nice Jewish gay, and we decided that we were deeply in love, and that deeply in love adult Jews joined shuls together. And because everything was virtual, any shul could be our local shul, we did our research, and the one place that checked all of my boxes was CBST. I wept after seeing Rabbi Kleinbaum and Rabbi Rapport lead together at my first service. The first time I attended Shacharit was the first time I attended a Jewish service where queerness was normative and I wasn't the only Black person in the room. After years of believing that Jewish institutional life wasn't for me and couldn't ever be for me, CBST changed all of that over the course of a weekend. When I decided to join, CBST's policy of being open to all meant that I felt happy to give what I could as dues, and knew that whatever I gave would be welcome. It meant that my post-grad school chronically underemployed dollars were welcome just as much as they are now that I'm fully employed. The CBST Connects program matched me with someone who has become one of my closest friends. We send each other weekly BHIS, Baruch Hashem, and Shabbat texts, and are always fangirling together over our cats and our favorite Jewish astrologers. I have never felt like less than a full participant in the life of CBST since I became a member. Even as I still make my way through Beirut, the process of becoming Jewish, the clergy, staff, and members of CBST have welcomed me with open arms. So often, as a minoritized person, institutions love to tell me, you matter, you deserve to be here. But at CBST, that hasn't ever needed to be said. From the moment I walked into the virtual doors, those truths were lived out. I have always known I belong in the spaces I want to be in. The question has always been whether or not other folks in those spaces know I belong. With pride and a full heart, I can say that that's true here. CBST, a congregation that began in order for gay Jews to have a space to bravely engage in their traditions, has continued to do so. Who would have thought that a Black trans Jew living in Austin, Texas would have found their spiritual home in Manhattan? I surely did not, but after years of yearning for a community, I wake up with gratitude each day to have found it. I know that many of you are watching this today because you too are craving community. Maybe this is your first time engaging with CBST. Maybe you've come to services but haven't made the decision whether or not to join. Here's my 2 cents. We invest in communities we believe in. And I believe in CBST. I believe in its mission. I believe in the community. I believe in the ways that wherever you are on your journey with Judaism, CBST makes room for you at the table. And that's key. Here at CBST, room is purposefully made for all who want to participate. So whether you're tuning in right now from down the street or from a time zone 8 hours ahead, believe in CBST, invest in CBST, and be a part of this loving community. May more people know true belonging and love through this community this year, and God willing, for many years to come. L'shana tova u'metuka.